Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I have like my dream podcast guest I have on the podcast. And Krista, I did give my team literally a list of like dream podcast guests to go pitch. And you were on that list. And now here we are. So everybody shoot your shot, get your dream guests.
I am so honored. I think you think I am way too cool, but I love it. I'm here for that.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, and I know everyone's going to be excited to hear from you. We have a lot of crossover, so I have a lot of people in my mastermind that are in Summit in a Box and in my community, and so you've got a lot of fans over in Faith Mariah land. And those of you guys that
Aw.
don't know Krista are going to be in for a real treat because she knows her stuff. I think that is what really made me a fan of you. Is there's so much fluffy business strategy advice in the online space, and Krista's not that. If you want like real strategies with numbers and analytics and an actual business strategy, she is the one to go to. So for people that don't know you, could you just do a quick intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so thank you so much for the little pep talk. I love that. But yeah, I run a company called Summit in a Box, and I teach what it sounds like. I teach virtual summits. I give all the templates, training, strategies, processes anyone needs to run a summit. And a couple things that led me to start were, first of all, hosting my own summit as a baby business owner. I was not a big influencer. I did not know anybody. I didn't even think hosting summits were possible. And I did it, and I tripled my email list. I made 4 times the amount of revenue I'd ever made in a month before. And I was like, oh, small people can do it, but they don't know that. It's not accessible to them. It looks too difficult. It looks impossible to hit big numbers, but it's not. I need to make it accessible for people. So that's kind of what my original mission was, to make it so newer business owners can absolutely skyrocket years ahead by hosting virtual summits and making it so it doesn't take 5-10 events for them to figure it out. I'll just tell them how to do it. I also am really focused on virtual summits that aren't slimy, virtual summits that feel good as an attendee. So your attendees are walking away, having gotten something, and your speakers are also benefiting. So it's not just a list grab. It's not this transactional thing. You're building relationships. They're benefiting, you're benefiting, and everyone wins. Those are kind of like the core of what's most important to me when we're talking virtual summits.
I love that you talked about it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing because we host a lot of events in my community on my team. Like faithmariah.com puts out a lot of events every year. And I hear from people all the time that say, I would love to do something like that, but they just feel overwhelmed or like they're not ready. How do you, when you look at someone's business, someone comes to you, they're like, Krista, I think I want to do a summit. What are the things you look for to say like, yes, that person is ready to do a summit? Do they need to have a website? Do they need to have products? Do they need to have social media? Like, what are kind of the foundational pieces you think people should have in place? And how do you know if you're ready to do something like that?
I love that. So the first thing, I mean, I guess I'll start out by saying that I have had many students come into my program with nothing, not even a business. They don't have a business name, let alone a website or email list or anything. I'll say those are rare, but it happens. So if you have something you're
Mm,
passionate about and you want to start off with a bang, great. Come on into my world, you know?
yeah.
Um, Typically what I like to see is positioning for your business that you feel comfortable and confident in. So you know who you're speaking to, you know what you help them with, and you're confident in how you're saying those things. A lot of times that means, it can either mean you've gotten some bites on an offer, even if it's 2 sales to a 10-person, like it doesn't have to be huge, or you put out like a freebie or something and get a good response. I like to see something that tells me your messaging and your positioning is working before you spend, 3 months hosting a summit to find out that it wasn't. That typically is the key thing I look for. Um, Something else I like to see is someone who has like a more of a go-getter attitude, where if someone comes to me, they're like, I don't really like big projects and I'm not very tech savvy. Can I host a summit? I'm like, you can, but you might not enjoy it. Um, it's a big project, you know? So I like to see that someone can at least semi enjoy big projects and then they can manage some moving pieces, because there are a lot of moving pieces involved. you know, there are other things you need to host a summit. Like you need a website to have the pages on. You need an email list to collect registering email addresses. You need somewhere to sell your All Access Pass. You don't necessarily have to have all those things before you start. It does make the process easier though. But you know, really, if we really dial it all the way down, all you need is a great idea.
Yeah. How do you know if you have a great idea or not?
Mm-hmm. See, and that's why I like to see some sort of proof with an offer or even an opt-in. That is the best way to make sure. We have had some people who are just so confident that they don't even care. Like I had someone named Maggie Classens on my podcast a while back where she had gone through the process herself of overcoming alcoholism and being sober. And she was so passionate about
That's
helping people
amazing.
with it. With absolutely nothing, she launched the Sober Summit. 4,500 attendees and 50 some $1,000 or something like that with
Oh my gosh.
nothing. And then afterwards she was like, oh, I guess I should probably start a business. You know,
Yeah.
I would be hesitant if it was like a new B2B business idea where you have like no proof that your strategies and stuff works. I kind of think starting from nothing probably works better with B2B where you can feel the same passion that other people are feeling. But I have had B2B people come in and do it as well. Like someone came in, hosted, it was a smaller summit. I think she had 500 attendees and like 9K in All Access Pass sales, but then she booked her first $10,000 in clients on the back end. I was like, all right, like I guess you can do this from scratch.
Like, okay.
So like either need a whole lot of confidence or just something that can prove to you that people are interested.
I'm always hearing from B2C people because I coach basically people that are not business coaches, right? They're crocheters, they're DIY people, they're doing cake decorating, they're doing, sobriety, career coaches, stuff like that. Those are mostly, my clients. And they'll say to me, they're like, well, you guys do that, but that works in B2B. It's not going to work for me. And I'm always like, you guys have the most opportunity. You're in like the blue ocean. I'm like, you can have the thing. Like, I'm curious to hear your take on that. Like, what do you think of B2C versus B2B?
It makes me just like want to do a head desk situation when I have B2C people say that, because there are some things that are different. I get that. But my B2C clients blow my B2B clients and me away.
Oh, yeah.
They make us all look silly. I just had one host a $300,000 summit. I could never do that. I don't care how much money I spend on ads. I will never host a $100,000 summit. I can't even say it. Our B2C clients and students make B2B just look silly. It's not even in the same ballpark. There's so much more passion and excitement. It's more unique. You can get more creative. People are just genuinely excited. It's less of a transaction pressure-filled thing. Like,
it's like it's more room for you. I'm like, if people will say to me, they're like, well, no one's doing that in my niche. I'm like, yeah, but you could be the one. Like you could be like known for that. Like that could like really change your positioning. I love the networking aspect of summits as well. I think the biggest thing I think it did for me with B2B was it connected me with so many other people, and I've met so many people because of it, and I get invited to so many things. And something I'll hear people say a lot is like, well, I want to be invited. Nobody invites me. Like, how do I get invited? How do I find summits? And I'm like, you need to do more inviting, right? So for a while I was doing that too. I was like, why is so-and-so always invited and I'm not invited? Everybody else is speaking at these things. Why don't I ever get invited? And then when we started hosting our own events, everybody started inviting me. And I was like, if you want to be invited, you need to do more inviting.
Exactly.
And that really has stuck with me. So do you guys see a lot of networking benefits?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have I would say in 50% of our like post-summit forms that our clients and students fill out, it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe all of the pitches I'm already getting for podcasts and speaking. I've never had this before. So like it's a thing. Like this is a strategy. If you want to get more opportunities, host a summit. Like it will get your name out there. It'll have your 20 plus whatever speakers. You're one of the first people they think of now for any opportunities. You put your name out there as a leader in the space. Like that's how you do it.
That was the biggest thing I think that really changed for me when we went to this strategy was like, oh, I'm like now I'm invited to I never would have imagined, you guys, but now I'm invited to so many things, and it's so awesome. And I really think I get invited so much because we do so much inviting. I have to pick your brain about pitches while I've got you here. So
Right.
for people that are new and they're thinking about, that sounds great, Krista, I think I want to do a summit. They're like, I'm going to dip my little toe into the summit pool over here. But I know they're going to be like, but I have, I'm like nobody though. Like, no, who's going to come to my thing? Like, I'm like small. Like, how can I invite people to come to my summit? Is anybody going to say yes to me? I know you've got good tips. So I want your tips of how do you get people to say yes to you when you're a little tiny baby fish
Yes.
in the
Yes.
pond?
Absolutely. Literally the most important thing you can do is focus on the positioning of your summit. So who is it for? And what's it about? What is it going to help these people with? Because what we want is for these people who have bigger businesses than you to see literally just that, who it's for and what it's about, and be like, I have to be a part of that. I don't even care about the details. I have to be at that. I need to be a name that these people are seeing. That's how you do it. I mean, that's the key. When we're looking at pitches, we can look in like, okay, what goes into a pitch template. You need to lay out how it's a win for them, right? You're not just making an ask like, here's what I need from you. It's no, here's what I would need, but also here, boom, boom, boom. Here's what I'm going to do to benefit you. It needs to be a win-win. But in order for them to even get to those details, you need to pull them in with who the summit's for, what it's about. So like if I get a pitch for like, hey, will you come speak at my summit for bloggers who want to grow an email list? For me, it's an immediate no. I don't care how big, I don't care if they have millions of people on their email list. Bloggers aren't my go-to people in most cases. It doesn't make sense for me to spend my time there. Yeah. Now, on the flip side, if it's like, I'm hosting a summit for people who want to scale their membership, like, okay, you have my attention. I'll click over to their stuff. I don't care if it's like a couple hundred people on Instagram. I want to get in front of that audience. I would much rather, spend 30 minutes making a presentation than thousands of dollars on Facebook ads to get in front of that same audience. Plus, I get all these connections and things. So when you position your summit well and make it a win-win, your audience size, your level of success really doesn't matter. It definitely helps when you have a professional outward appearance, like when your website looks like you know what you're doing. If you have one, your social media looks like you know what you're doing. But like I said, I've had many students come in with nothing and they get the people to say yes, so those things are helpful, but it's not like the end all be all.
Yeah, and like when you're pitching people, like they don't know that you don't have an email list. Yeah. They don't know that you've never done a summit before. Don't tell them that. You come in like with the energy of like, of course you're going to say yes to this, and I'm bringing you this great opportunity. And like, I think that could be really great energy to pitch in. And I love that you said like, make it a win for them. I have this joke in the community where I'm like, I get people to do what I want, but I'm like not above bribery. And I'm like, we'll bribe the community, right? We'll do giveaways. I'll do like whatever I've got to do to get people to do what I want. But if we're pitching somebody, if there was somebody I really wanted, like I will send them like a voice memo on Instagram, like asking them to come, right? We're going to send them a personalized pitch. We're going to tell them exactly what they want to do. If it's somebody I think that would just really be great to have on the ticket or whatever, if I'm like, if I could get this person, pitching everybody else is going to be so easy because I can just tell them all this person's on board. I'm going to bribe that person. I'm going to be like, hey, we're going to like give you, if you're not doing sponsors yet, I would basically do sponsored packages for free for those higher ticket people that have bigger lists, saying, I'm going to give you extra shout outs. Like, I know like your community is going to love this event. I know you're perfect for it. I would love to make you a headline speaker. I don't know. We make stuff like that up. Like
A+ work like, right there. That's great.
Yeah. So I'm like, make them a headline speaker, like, like do some extra things. And I always think that's a nice way to get people to say, yeah, just do a little bribery. There's a little Faith Mariah trick for you.
And like also the name dropping is really, really helpful because that has worked on me a couple of times. I'm like, oh yeah, I've never heard of this person. I'm not quite sure. Oh, so-and-so's going to be in it. Okay, sure. Yep. I'm in.
You get pitched all the time, I'm sure, right? And that's one of the things that gets me is like, if I see a couple people I know that like are my buddies or my friends, like, I'm like, oh, she's doing it? Like, yeah, we can do that one. Like, and I might not even really necessarily look at it. So I think getting like a couple, like doing some really personalized pitching, getting a couple bigger kind of people know. It doesn't have to be a celebrity, but people know in your space to say yes. That's going to make all of your other pitching so much easier because you can be like, here's who we have on board so far, these two people. And everybody's like, perfect, I'm in. And so we do kind of, I feel like people do kind of fall in line like that. What are your tips for doing a summit? It's your first time. What are your tips for like not getting overwhelmed and like losing your mind? I would love Krista's tips for doing a summit without losing your freaking mind.
And I know from our previous recording that organization is not always your strong suit. But organization,
I'm a little ADHD creative entrepreneur queen over here.
I love it so much.
Like if you want 100 ideas in an hour, I'm your person. If you want the perfectly most beautiful SOP in the world, talk to my business manager. Am I going to respond to my text messages or emails this week? No.
Absolutely not. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my number one tip for this is to give yourself plenty of time. If you're someone who tends to get overwhelmed with bigger projects, or when you start seeing a few overdue tasks, give yourself at least 3 months for a summit. And I know that drives some of you nuts. Like, no, I need to do it yesterday. I don't have 3 months. I still give myself, I will start planning a summit more than 3 months in advance because I don't want it to be, I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want life to happen and for it to be a problem. I want to have room to have creative ideas and have time to implement those creative ideas. I want my speakers to have a wonderful experience. I want my attendees to have just this, red carpet rolled out for them. You need to give yourself plenty of time to make that happen. And like I personally would not plan a summit in less than 90 days. I do have people come in and do it. Usually those are the clients and students who will sit right next to me and be like, listen to her. I'm going to do 90 days or even more next time. You just never know what's going to happen. So that's my number one tip. Give yourself plenty of time. Along with that, a summit is a bigger project than you can see from the outside. So you might have looked at someone else's summit. You might have even spoken at a summit before, several summits. You don't know all the moving pieces. So it's important to have a very detailed project plan that breaks down what all of those are. That's something that we provide. Of course, I'm going to sit here and tell you ours is going to be better than what you could make up yourself. And that's not me sitting here all high and mighty being like, I'm the best. You don't know. I've been doing this for years. And every time I was a summit, I'm like, oh, I should probably add this to the project plan. The project plan is not what it used to be, 5 years ago when we started doing this. It's iteration after iteration after iteration, making it better. Being like, oh, this doesn't happen so much anymore, but it did the first few rounds. Like, oh darn, this wasn't even in the project plan, but I ended up realizing I forgot it and having to add it. You don't want to have to do that for the entire summit hosting process. So a step-by-step project plan that tells you what to do and when to do it and while you're doing it can definitely help with some of that overwhelm and feeling like you're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that a decent summit comes out at the end.
Oh. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. Those are very, very valuable tips. I have a lot of people kind of in our community, I feel like that know they want to do a summit someday, but it's kind of like this idea that's like floating out that it's like, oh, someday I'll do it. Someday I'm going to do it. How do you know, like, it's time to just decide to do it now? And how do you know if you have the capacity? I think a lot of people are always kind of in this mindset of like, well, I'll wait, like I'll have more time, or I'm in a busy season. How do you know, I guess, like, if you have the capacity to do it? And how do you know, like, yes, we're gonna just bite the bullet and like someday is actually now, it's not like out in the future anymore, we're actually gonna bring it in and start executing on it? Do you have any advice for people like to navigate that decision-making process?
Yeah, I hear this a lot where, okay, I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do it after this happens. And like, my question for anyone who's thinking that is like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for a bigger email list? If so, why? A summit will get you the email list way faster and way bigger. Are you waiting to reach a certain level of income? Why? A summit will get you that level of income. Are you waiting for certain connections? Why? A summit will get you the connections. So like, yeah. I almost never hear a good excuse for why someone is waiting.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I would say capacity is the biggest thing to pay attention to, because like I said, it's a decent sized project. And I'm also not, even though I love summits, I'm not someone to sit here and be like, no, perfect. You're going to be fine. Throw it together. Everything will come together. that's not always the
No, you
case.
guys execute very well, and your students, I work with a lot of your students too because I
Mhm.
speak their stuff. So,
Yes.
your students also, like, execute very well, like, they're very well executed events.
Yeah.
I've seen some not so well executed events and some very well executed events, and I feel like people
Yes.
in your world tend to execute at a very high
Yeah.
level. But what kind of
Yeah.
time commitment, when you see an event that is well done, what kind of time commitment? Can you give me any kind of range? Like, I know that's a hard question.
Yeah,
Is it like
yeah.
100 hours a week? Is it like 10 minutes a week? Like, what
Mhm.
kind of time commitment do you think is required to be able to execute something really well?
So my first summit, I will say, was executed well, even though I didn't have anything. My best estimate is that one took me about 500 hours to put everything together from scratch to figure it all out. It was lots of 12-hour days for lots of months in a row.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, if they don't have like your system really gives them will shave a lot
Yes,
of that down, right?
yes,
Because you're
exactly.
gonna get you when you get some in a box, you get Krista's processes from her team, and you can just follow. You guys use like
Yeah.
Asana or
Yeah, our stuff is in Asana, Trello, ClickUp, Airtable, and
oh, so you have
Notion.
all of
So
it. So
whatever you
any one you
use.
guys
Yeah.
use. But
Yeah.
it's
So
in
like
task, you get like her task manager board basically, and you can
mhm.
assign everything out. And like that does save a ton of time, I'm
Oh yeah,
sure.
and I mean, you get all the templates. You get the website page templates, literally hundreds of copy templates for everything from the pages, the emails, the speaker communicate, like everything you need. So I would say, like someone coming
Yeah,
into my
that's amazing.
program, I usually in the project plan you get, we have it assigned 3 days per week, where I like to see someone set aside 3 pretty solid days a week for those 3 months for summit
Okay.
work. Now, whether that time is your time or a team member's time doesn't matter. But typically, someone can fit it into 3 days per week. Some of those are full, like full days. Some of them are you're doing a couple, maybe it's an hour or two a day and you're done. But the safest bet is to probably set aside 3 fairly full days per week. And if you don't need that time, great. So, I mean, it does require clearing some space in your schedule. So, if you have a busy season coming up with life or family, take that into account.
Mhm.
If you already have launches in motion, hey, let's wait to get those off the plate until to like start the summit planning. But also, can you move anything? Or if you're like, I just don't have time for this, what are you doing right now that's causing you to not have the time? Are you doing all these tasks that literally aren't getting you anywhere? And that's what I found for me the first time I tried to do a summit, because I was so busy doing all the things. I was doing weekly YouTube videos. This was back in the day of Twitter. I was doing like 10 Twitter posts per day and
Gotta get my
four
tweets out.
posts on my Facebook page per day, and like all of these things that took so much time. And I was like, wait,
Mm.
they're not doing a darn thing for me. So let me put a pause on all this, host a summit instead, and I can come back to it later. And I went back to almost none of it later because the summit worked so much better and was worth so much more of my time. All those other things were just pointless. So you might have to do a little analyzing of what you're working on right now and maybe what doesn't make sense to put your summit off for. If you're doing some kind of, let's say, a certain kind of social media marketing that's not getting you results, it doesn't make sense to put your summit off to keep doing that because it's not working. Get your summit going. And what
Mhm.
you also find after hosting a summit is that everything else works better too. More people know who you are. You have a bigger email list. You learn a ton about your audience and what they need and how they say it. And like everything else will just work better afterwards as well.
I've got one more question for you and then I'll let you go. I just have to know what are like the biggest we call them thought errors in my community, but like myths or thought errors about hosting summits you see kind of people have that haven't done summits before. What do you think? What are the things where you're just like, oh, everybody thinks
Mm.
this and it drives me crazy? Or like,
Uh,
I hate everybody thinks this. It's so incorrect. What are those things? I'm sure you have a couple.
I just jotted down two that like are like nails on the chalkboard to me. First is people who think paid events are going to make them more money than free events. Drives me so wild. And if anyone wants, I have a podcast episode on this. Anyone can DM me or whatever to get the link. But putting a ticket price on your event is instantly going to drastically reduce the number of people who sign up. So if you're doing a summit in any way to be a list building event and you put a price tag on it, it's not going to work. That's just how it is, unless you have thousands of dollars to throw at ads, or you already have a huge audience and you're just hoping to monetize from that audience. Totally different strategies. So that's the first one. People thinking a paid event is going to work better. We have had multiple clients come into our programs. Like one that comes to mind, he was hosting $23,000 paid events, which is like, whoa, I actually have not heard of many people having paid events that are that successful. He came in, I convinced him to switch to our free model, which surprised me, 56,000 in the next one. Like,
amazing.
Just trust the process. Second one is people who assume that big name influencers are going to be their most valuable speakers, and landing an influencer guarantees their summit success. That person is not going to say a single word about your summit. No one in their audience is going to know what's happening. The bigger someone is, the less likely they are to promote. And I have seen some very, very big, like some of the biggest names in the online business space host an event full of influencers, but none of them promote. So the event is a total flop. When this person had everything going for them, it should have worked, but they pitch all people who just don't have the space for it. You need to pitch people who still value these kinds of opportunities. The influencers do not value it. So do not place too high of a value on
that is such a good point, Krista. I just have to like highlight that for everybody, because we see this with our events as well. Because we'll be like, oh my gosh, so-and-so just signed up. And Kelsey will be like, oh, the reach on this and like whatever. And it is never, we can see on the back end, like how many people bring in, right? I pay affiliates, I pay them all. We see how many free signups people get and how many affiliates they get. And it's not the people with the 10,000 list or the big list. It's not those people that drive traffic to us. It is the smaller people that you would never think that maybe even have under 1,000 on an email list, right? That are like baby entrepreneurs, but they are out there, man. They will go to bat for you. They are like so excited to be included, and they just like love it, and they're hyping it up, and they're like putting it in every Facebook group they can find, and they're talking about it every day on Instagram. I had someone at a last event we did, every day on Instagram, she was showing like all the things she got like that day from our bundle, and like doing different highlights about it. And like, those are the people that are just like, will make an event for you. And so I think like having a good mix of both, right? It's like, yeah, pitch some of those bigger people, but if you can only get small people, man, they're small, but, and their audiences like are obsessed with them. So
yes, exactly.
I had that same thought error though. I would have never thought that. I would have thought like, oh, let's get like all these big people in. And now I'm like, oh, like it really is like that kind of mid-level person that really drives the most traffic to us. It's not the numbers you would think. Yep. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us. And I just so appreciate you taking the time to be here. Tell everybody, where can we go? You guys have to follow Krista. Me and my team literally are obsessed with her. Kelsey and I share your podcast and talk about it on Slack all the time. We're like, did you hear Krista say this? Blah, 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 blah. So her podcast is full of gems. You guys have to go. Even if you're just thinking about doing a summit and you're like, I don't know about all that, you'll still get a lot of really great business tips. And like, Krista's she's a businesswoman that I really respect. I feel like you are just so analytical and calm in how you run your business and how you do things. And you'll pick up a lot of great business strategy and wisdom just from listening to her every week. So tell everybody, where can we stalk you? Everybody's going to go be obsessed with you. Where should they go follow you? And we'll put all the links for you guys in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can find me at summitinabox.co. That's C-O, not C-O-M. That will take you to all the things, all of our free stuff. Our podcast has about 280 episodes at this point for you to dive into as far as you want. I'm also on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. So if you're looking for something specific, want to say, hey, let me know you were listening, please feel free to DM me on there. You can also DM me the word triple, and I'll send you a link straight to a training that I think is going to be most helpful for you if, you know, this episode kind of resonated with you. If you haven't hosted a summit before, you're kind of wondering if you can make it work, if you're ready for it, I think it would be super helpful.
I would DM her and get that workshop, because Krista she's after my own heart, because I'm always like, I want my free stuff to be better than most people's paid stuff. And I feel like you really rise to that level with your free stuff too. It's Absolutely. Like her free summit trainings are going to be better than most people's paid summit trainings. So I think the truth. Yeah, you guys should definitely take her up on that and grab that from her. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. Everybody that's listening, you now all have to host a summit. I command you. Requirement. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everybody. Hey.